really appreciate the opportunity to get together with you today. First of all, I would just like to say, as an insurance agent, I am not an attorney and I do not practice law. So any discussion of tax benefits is based solely on my understanding of the law, which is subject to change. So we advise that you consult with any legal and tax advisors before making any decisions. All right, great, let's get started. All right, first of all, I would like to again thank you for having the opportunity to meet with you. I don't know if I have something or not that's gonna help you, but I'm just gonna go through the various areas that we work in, such as increasing cash flow, decreasing debt, reducing taxes. We also specialize in life insurance and annuities and how they can potentially shave years off of your retirement date. After that, if there's an interest on your part, we'll get back together at a later date and time and we'll discuss specifics. But for today, there's nothing to buy, so just sit back, relax, and let's get started. All right, well, Federal Financial Group is a national company representing several insurance companies and financial institutions, some of which have been in business for over 100 years. What we do is we teach people about money, how it works, and how to make it work better for you. Specifically, our goal is one thing: to help people become financially independent. What that means is that the interest you're earning on the money you have put away actually replaces what you'd be getting from a job or an income. So at that point, you don't have to work anymore. You can if you choose to, but you don't have to. That's financial independence. Now, wouldn't you like to know how to get there the soonest? Well, that's exactly where I'm headed. Now, let's look at the past 10 years and just kind of touch base on some of the issues and challenges that we're facing. Yes, incomes have risen, but inflation continues to go higher and higher. For most people, there's no way that incomes have kept up with things like housing and other expenses. Therefore, lack of security steps in, poor spending habits take over, and that can cause some real problems. Now, here's my point. Out of 100 people turning 65 today, only 4 are financially secure. Only 4, as in making $30,000 or more. The other 96 are not. That's a big problem. So then you're wondering, what's their situation? Well, some of them are relying on charity, some of them are relying on family, but the majority of them are still working. I mean, we've seen them, the greeters at Walmart. You know, it was so sad. The other day I was walking into one of my favorite restaurants and I saw this older lady that works there crouched over in the corner, scraping something off of the floor. I mean, can you imagine? Here is a woman who's old enough to be my grandmother, bent over in the most uncomfortable position, scraping someone else's mess off of the floor. It was heartbreaking. And you know, that's not someone who wanted to be there. That's someone who's out of money. All right, well, let's talk about a little bit of what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through some critical areas involving 7 key steps, and what we do is we weave these steps together to help build your financial future. Now, afterwards, if there's an interest on your part, I'll get some information together and we'll discuss it later and actually come up with a strategy for you. The goal here is to get financial independence the quickest. The first step is to track your earnings by inspecting what you expect. Now, in order to have money later on for your future dreams and goals, you need to know exactly where you're spending your money right now. Part of understanding how money works and how to make it work better for you is knowing exactly where your money goes. So we're going to introduce you to a tool that's going to allow you to track your earnings and expenditures so that you can actually inspect what you expect. The whole goal of this is to free up some extra cash that you didn't even know you had. That money can be applied towards paying off debts. It can even be used towards shaving years off of your retirement date. It's excellent. The next one is increasing cash flow. Now, John, how would you define cash flow? Okay, great definition. Well, let's also define cash flow as this. Monthly cash flow is the amount of money left over at the end of the month after all the money comes in and all your bills and expenses go out. What we do is we pair you up with companies that actually can improve your cash flow by reducing the cost of servicing some of your debts. Now, let me ask you another question. At the end of the year, do you usually get a tax refund or do you owe money in taxes? Well, it's really interesting that you say that because we actually met with a client who said he usually gets about a $3,000 refund every year. So we said, you're telling us that you pay the government to hold on to your money for a little bit over a year, and then you allow them to pay it back to you with 0 interest? He said, that doesn't make sense. And you know what? It doesn't. There are ways to take that money as it's being earned, put it back into your budget, and allow it to earn more money for you and not the government. Now, in step 3, we help people to eliminate debt. We actually use 2 different strategies to do that. So first of all, let's talk about our debt eliminator plan. Now, here's an actual client. Now they have a first mortgage, an auto loan, credit card, store credit. Now, if they continue to pay their debt according to their current system, making their current payments, they're going to be out of debt in 26.8 years. But following our debt eliminator plan, they'll be out of debt in 13.1 years. Same amount of debt, same monthly payment, no additional refinancing, but they're actually going to be out of debt in 13.1 years, including mortgage. Now get this is even better. If they continue to make those same payments, but now pay the money to themselves, they'll not only be out of debt in 26.8 years, but they'll also have potentially $500,000 in their savings. That's incredible. And yes, this is using a hypothetical example of 8%, but you can see the real potential here in eliminating debt. So John, if I told you that I had a way to help you reduce your debt and get out of debt in a much faster time frame than you normally would have, is that something you'd be interested in? Great. Well, now this other example involves a mortgage. Now here's the hypothetical debt structure of a family. They have their first mortgage, second mortgage, car loan, credit card, everything totaling up to about $206,000. Now, how long do you think it might take this family to get out of debt? Well, what they chose to do was a debt consolidation loan, and this is great because this can free up additional cash that can be used towards paying off debt as well as building up an emergency fund. And it can also increase tax deductions, which is great. So what happened with their plan is that it actually reduced their payment from $1,192 to $1,000, actually it brought their payment, their new monthly payment to $1,192. It was previously $1,937. This created a monthly savings of almost $800 and an annual savings of nearly $9,000. Absolutely incredible. And so the question for this family was, do we do a 15-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage? Well, that gets into the issue of time value of money. Looking at that, with a 15-year mortgage, they would have payments of about $1,716 a month. And now, after they've paid off their debt in 15 years, if they continue to pay that amount into a savings, they would have about $593,000 in savings. Pretty good, but let's look at what happens with a 30-year mortgage. It would bring their payments down to $1,192, creating a difference of $524. Now, if they were to save that amount for 30 years, they would have in their savings $780,000, creating a difference of $187,000. That is incredible. So that's how we deal with debt and help some of our clients to get out of debt. Now, step 4 is a biggie too. This is called developing an emergency fund. What we found is that most people don't have one. So what happens is when an emergency strikes, out comes the plastic. That $1,800 transmission 3 to 4 years down the road becomes a $3,000 to $4,000 transmission. You see, that's what's hurting people. Now, a sound emergency fund has some essential components. First of all, it's gotta be safe. It's gotta be liquid. It's got to have a better rate of return than a checkings account, and it's got to be separate and systematic. Now, John, have you ever tried to create an emergency fund within a checkings account? Doesn't happen, right? It's gonna get spent. But if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. That's why we encourage our clients to set up a separate account, such as a money market account, where they can have the money drafted every month, say $50 from their checking account to their money market account on the same time of every month. That way it's out of sight, it's out of mind, growing at a good rate of return, and then when stuff happens, you've got the money. That way you can keep your credit card balance low, and you can also prevent from dipping into your retirement savings and facing those awful penalties. It's simple, it's powerful, and it works. Now, step 5 is also very important. It's using life insurance to provide proper protection against the loss of life, which can lead to the loss of income. You know, it's devastating. Mom and dad have 3 kids, and then suddenly dad is gone. Something happens, and he's gone. And when dad's gone, so is his income. Have you seen this before? It's horrible, because now who's going to pay the house bill, the light bill, for food? See, that's what's devastating. So part of having a sound financial plan is having proper life insurance to replace income. Now, we do things a little bit differently here. What we do is we look at a person's financial needs, and then we bring back solutions to the table that are going to allow them to increase their cash flow while saving money and also setting them up with a proper amount of life insurance. Now, step 6 is the biggest step. This is the one that everybody loves. And if you listen to me, John, this could literally change the quality of your life. Step 6 is about building long-term income and long-term savings. Now, there's 2 elements that come into play here, 2 battles that you have to win in order to win the money game. Because if you don't, it can be strong with you. The chances of you becoming financially independent probably won't happen. And if they do, they're way out there. So this is huge. Now, these 2 battles are 1, the inflation battle. You'll see why in a minute. And 2, the tax battle, because it's not what you make, it's what you keep. Now, let's talk about inflation. Have you heard of the rule of 72? Well, it's really interesting. Let me explain. What it is whatever interest rate you have, say 4%, divide that into 72, and that's going to tell you how many years it's going to take for your money to double. So 4 into 72 equals 18. So every 18 years, your money doubles. Great. Now let's say you have $100 in a checking account that earns 4%. That means after 18 years, that money will double to $200. After 18 years, $200. What happens after another 18 years? Right, $400. Now, here's the question. 36 years from now, is $400 going to buy what $100 buys now? Probably not. Inflation has averaged 3%. So, see, that's inflation. Now, John, if people are saving, where are they saving? Right, banks, fixed accounts, credit unions, things like that, where they're probably not even getting 4%. Their money is growing, but inflation is growing much faster. They're losing purchasing power, and they may never retire. Big, huge problem. The only solution is to get a potentially better interest rate, say 6 to 12%. Let's look at an example and see what happens. All right, let's say you're 29 years old and you have $10,000 in an account that earns 4%. Well, after 36 years have gone by, you're 65 and you have $40,000 in your account. So let's picture this. You're 65, you're getting ready to retire, you paid off your house, you're so excited, this is the time of your life you've been waiting for. And you have $40,000 to your name. Now, John, how long do you think that's gonna last? And at the rate you spend, probably half the time. But seriously, probably a year, maybe a little longer if you're really frugal, but then you're out of money. And you're out of time. Who really wants to work past the age of 65? The only thing we could have done differently was to get you a potentially better interest rate. Now, do you think if you had an interest rate of, say, 6 to 12% rather than 4%, that you'd be more financially independent? Absolutely. Let's look at what happens. With 6%, your money doubles every 12 years, so that by the time you're 65, you have $80,000. At 8%, your money doubles every 9 years because of the same rules that we talked about, so that now you have $160,000. But get this, at 12%, your money doubles every 6 years, so that by the time you're 65, you have $640,000. Wow, that is incredible. Now, the only difference between this guy and this guy is the interest rate. Not more time, not more money, only the interest rate. Same amount of time, same amount of money, but only the interest rate. But yet it costs this guy right here $600,000. Now, John, don't you think this is a pretty important principle to learn? I mean, this could literally change the quality of your life. And you know what? It's not about interest rate. Now, John, if you can save for you, I'm telling you, there may come a day when you're no longer out earning your money, but your money is actually out earning you. Isn't that incredible? Now, here's a $1,000,000 question. Where can you get a decent rate of return while still having all the protection and principal to where you're guaranteed not to lose money? Well, actually, there are 3 different strategies. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of each one, and then you're going to keep in mind which one makes the most sense to you for when we get back together. Okay, the first approach is a fixed rate approach. In that approach, you're guaranteed a fixed rate, but it's a low rate, usually 2 to 3%, which is dangerous because of inflation. Now, in the second approach, it's the far opposite end of the spectrum, stock market, mutual funds, where there's the potential for high returns, but you can also lose all of your money. And that's been happening a lot lately because it's been pretty dicey. But now the third approach is the index strategy, in which all the principal you save is protected and all of the interest you've earned is also protected. So you're guaranteed not to lose any money. And all interest earned is linked directly to the performance of the S&P 500, which has averaged 10% a year over the past 25 years. Now, John, out of those 3 strategies, which one makes the most sense to you? Okay, the index strategy. It's great you say that, because that's actually a really popular strategy. Let's talk about it for a second. Do you know anything about the S&P 500 index? Okay, great, no problem. Well, the S&P 500 index is the 500 most widely held companies in the United States, representing over 100 industry groups such as healthcare, technologies, utility. In fact, it represents almost 70% of the United States economy. But get this, for the last 25 years, the S&P 500 has averaged 10% growth a year. So you can imagine, had you invested in the S&P 500 25 years ago, you'd be pretty happy, right? Definitely. Now, when we get back together, I'm going to go over specific products, costs, floors, caps, things like that. But for today, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the index strategy and how interest crediting works. Now, all interest earned is linked directly to the S&P 500 up to a cap, say 10%, while still having all of the protection of not losing any of your principal. So you're not facing any of that downside risk associated with putting money directly into the stock market. So you're protected from any market loss, but you can still participate in the gains of the stock market of the S&P 500 up to a certain cap, say 10%. Now, let's look at an example. Let's say that you put $10,000 into the index strategy a couple years ago, and an S&P 500 does 10% in its first year. That means your money has increased to $11,000. Great, excellent, right? Let's say it does 10% the second year as well. So then your money also goes up to $12,100. Excellent, you're happy? But then the third year, the S&P 500 goes down 20%. Is that possible? Yeah, it's happened before. But then rather than your account value dropping all the way down to $9,600, you're locked right here at $12,100. Your account stays right there. Isn't that great? Now, isn't that a pretty important principle to keep in mind? Now, but it's not enough to just be winning this inflation battle and rate of return battle. I mean, you can obviously see why this is so popular, but it's not enough just to win that battle. You also have to keep in mind taxes, because if you don't win both battles, you're not putting yourself in the best situation. Now, I'm going to show you an example that is going to blow your mind as to how important it is to win both the rate of return battle and the tax battle. Now, let's say 30 years ago, there was a guy who was 30 years of age and he wanted to have $1 million saved by the time he turned 60. Now, he didn't really understand how any of this stuff worked. So he just walked into the bank and he said, "Banker, what do I have to save every month for the next 30 years to have $1 million?" Well, back then, CD rates were about 5%. So the banker went back, did some calculations, and figured out, well, sir, if you save exactly $1,639.29 at 5% every single month for the next 30 years, you'll have your $1 million. Well, the guy got frustrated, went home, never saved a dime, and now he's a greeter at Walmart. I mean, we've seen him, right? This happens. But what if we could have shown him a way to win both the rate of that number. Almost $900. Okay, let's win one battle at a time. Let's look at the rate of return battle. Say we could have got him a better interest rate, say 10% rather than 5%. See how it drops that clear down to $900? I mean, that's significant. I mean, John, how many people honestly could probably save that much money every month? Probably not a lot, but it's still $700 less than this guy. That's pretty significant. Now, what if we could have also shown him a way where he could put his money somewhere where it could not be taxed as it grows? Amazing. It drops that number to $438. That's incredible. Now, how many people do you know can save $438 a month? A lot of people, right? I mean, you could probably even do that. You're probably blowing that right now. But the point is, I mean, for most people, that's not a big deal. And you know what? It's not about saving a ton of money. It's about putting a little bit of money away on a monthly basis with a decent rate of return, with reduced taxes, and having the protection of principal, where you know you're not going to lose your money. Now, this is great because at the end of step 6, a person is going to know exactly how and when they're going to be totally, potentially, financially independent, completely. And it's great because if we do this right, it can literally shave years off of your potential retirement date. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, John, if you could be totally financially independent right now, what would you be doing? What are your hopes? What are your dreams? What would you and your wife be doing? Wow, that's excellent. And you know what? That's what it's about. It's about having options. It's about having choices, being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. You know what? It was so incredible. One of our clients, we met in the implementation phase. That's actually step 2. She got so excited in the middle of the appointment. She said she could get up and go to every single one of her neighbors' houses, door to door, asking them, when will you be financially independent? And not one person would know. But she knew. And at that point, her and her husband, they became one because they knew what their dreams were and they knew when it was going to happen. It was incredible. So that's step 6. All right, step 7 is estate planning. Now, it's really interesting because with the trust, it's a great way to leave a legacy rather than just burdens and tax liabilities to your family. It can help you avoid things like probate and other liabilities. Also, it's important to consider things like power of attorney and having a living will. Do you remember the Terry Schiavo case about the woman who was incapacitated? I mean, she had the whole world arguing about what was going to happen to her. Imagine how differently things would have been had she just had a living will. Now, are you at all concerned about who's going to make legal, medical, or financial decisions for you if you're unable to? Okay, are you concerned about who's going to gain your assets when you pass away? Do you currently have a living will, or are you working with an attorney on estate planning issues? Okay, well, if not, we do recommend that you engage an attorney that specializes in estate planning issues. In fact, we can even recommend some companies that draft some simple estate planning documentation. All right, those are the 7 steps. Pretty interesting, huh? Now, John, out of all those steps, let's go back and quickly review. Out of all those steps, increasing cash flow, eliminating debt, developing an emergency fund, protecting what you have, and building that long-term financial independence, which of these 2 steps do you think would be the most important to you right now? Okay, great, excellent. Well, let me tell you about what we do. We do what's called a financial needs analysis. So basically, we're going to ask you a couple questions, and that's going to let me get an idea of what your needs and your hopes and your dreams and your goals are. And I'm going to take that information back with me, and I'm going to take it to the office, input it into our sophisticated software program, and come up with a plan of attack, all designed to get you to financial independence as quick as possible. Now, because I'm sure you're wondering, there's a cost to this thing. When I get back, I'm expecting chocolate chip cookies, fresh out of the oven, baked specifically by you. Just kidding. You were so serious. But no, really, this is how we get paid. The companies that you decide to link up with based on what your goals are pay us a referral fee, kind of like a commission. Therefore, there's no charges for services rendered to us, and it's a win-win. Awesome, right? Okay, great. But here's the thing. only the information that I provide, that I bring back to you, is going to only be as accurate as the information you give to me. So I'm really going to need you to work with me here. I mean, we're talking about your financial future. It's going to be amazing, but I'm really going to need you to work with me. And especially for the first few questions, I can't have maybe. It's got to be yes or no. So let's just go through a few of these. In the next 3 to 4 years, do you plan to make a major purchase? Okay, great. In the next 3 to 4 years, do you plan to buy a home? All right, excellent. What about paying off any credit cards? Okay. Are you interested in building an emergency fund? Great. All right, excellent. Well, we got some great information here. This is awesome. John, you have a ton of money that we can work with. This is so exciting. And you know what? By the time I come back, you are going to know exactly when. You're going to have a clear picture in your mind of exactly when you're going to be potentially totally financially independent. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. But you know what? I'm really going to need you to kind of stick with me here, because I'm going to be serious about this, because I know you're serious. I know you want this, and I want this for you. So let's plan to meet in the next 1 to 2 days. Because if we go out clear into next week, we might have to go over some of this stuff again, and I don't want us to lose any time. I want us to build on what we've established. So how does next week, Tuesday, how does tomorrow sound? Or do you have any time in the evening? I have some openings in the morning or the evening. Okay, great. Evening, perfect. All right, I have you scheduled for 5 p.m. tomorrow. I'm gonna come back. I'm so excited. This is the best part, you know, because you're really gonna see how everything comes together. You're gonna own me big time. This is incredible. I'm so excited to work with you. I know we got a lot of potential here. I'm sure you're gonna really be happy with what you see. You know, John, I got 2 more questions for you right before we go. I come back and I bring you a plan that you feel totally comfortable with, you love it in every single way, it meets all of your needs. Is there any reason why we wouldn't be able to do business? Great. Now, after we've done business, is there any reason why you wouldn't feel comfortable recommending me to 3 or 4 friends that you feel could also benefit from the services that we've offered you? Excellent. That's all I need to know. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye.
Did you turn it off?
No.
Oh.
I think it's still running.